Welcome to Guided Spirit Conversations. I'm your host, Marla Goldberg. This podcast has been created with you in mind to acquaint you with some of the most incredible metaphysicians and spiritual leaders from around the globe who have helped others change their lives. In this interactive hour, you will be offered insights and techniques to help you make a difference in your life. Don't forget to subscribe to the show in your favorite listening platform. And here we go, on to the show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's me, Dr. MarlaGoldberrg, and I'm so happy to be with you, and I'm even happier that you're with me. So thank you for joining the podcast. Before we start, I think it's time to just send prayers to all the strife that's going on in the world. We need prayers. We need to learn how to live together and not mutilate and do all these horrific terrible acts to other human beings, because I will share with you, once your body leaves, we are all the same. Our essence is all the same color. We are love, which is the thread that keeps us all together. So please try to look at people with a different eye. Learn to accept who they are. You don't have to believe what they believe, and you don't have to be forced to believe what they believe. But give them the space and the grace to believe what they want to believe for themselves, and you believe what you want to believe. And you can say, I can agree to disagree with you. Let's live life together in peace and harmony, and it can be done. So please join us in doing that today. Okay, I am so excited for my guest today, Mary Madeiras. She is a trailblazer with over 30 years, it's hard to believe, in network television, and she boasts 3 Emmy Awards and a Directors Guild of America Award. But her path took a spiritual turn during a psychic reading, revealing a male figure overseeing her Akashic Records. The encounter ignited a profound exploration into spirituality, leading her to the Akashic Records and earning 2 certifications as an Advanced Akashic Records reader or practitioner. Mary's innate connection to the metaphysical realm and encounters with light energies result in healing activations, guiding individuals to inner alignment. A transformative leader in both television and spirituality, Mary empowers others to rediscover their soul's destiny through the wisdom of their Akashic Records. Welcome, Mary. I'm so glad you're on the show. And I know we had some great conversation before coming live, so we're going to sort of get into this. Let's talk about the path of Mary. You were so successful on your path. Now that you're not successful in this path, but all of a sudden, something shifted, and you brought both of those together into your life. How did it happen? I know you went to a psychic.
Yeah, the psychic was the sort of third dimensional vehicle, one of them. There were a few signs of things that led me to the Akashic Records. One was that, and the being that the psychic saw over my shoulder, what she said was he told her that there were a few things he said. He said he sends ideas, he translates sacred geometry into creative ideas that he sends to me, which was very telling, because when I worked with actors, when I worked on the sets, I worked on, I think, like 7 of the daytime soap operas. And quite often when I was working, I would get an idea right on the set with some of the actors. And when I would bring the idea out, very often somebody would say, let's try that. Where did you get that idea? And I used to go, it just came in. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even realize what I was saying. I would just say, it just came in. And so that's where, and it was the same side that the being was seeing and of me. So that there was that. And he also said through the psychic that he sort of protects my Akashic Records. And when I asked, what are they? The psychic wasn't sure. She was like, I'm not sure, but that's what he's saying he does. So I went home and looked it up and started reading about the records. And, it was like a very gentle knowing. It was like I was remembering something. It wasn't like choirs went off. It was like, it was like, yep. Now I didn't run with it. I was still working on things in television, whatever. And then The second one sign was I was in a metaphysical bookstore out here in LA, and I was in a back room by myself, and there was my attention went to a book above me that was on a shelf, and it was sticking out. It was the only book sticking out. And when I heard, like, pull it down, I looked at it, and it was called How to Read Your Akashic Records. And so I thought, okay, now I listen. And that's the thing, we I'm a living example of when we get these little signs of things pop up. There's nothing random. There are no such things as accidents. Pay attention, right? You don't have to always take action, but certainly log it away and pay attention. So that I read that book, and once I read the book, in the book, the author is Linda Howe, who I eventually wound up studying with. She has the Center for Akashic Studies outside of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she has 6 books out now. She's wonderful. And her journey was very similar to mine. In my life, I was always attracted to things that were beyond third dimension, always. And a lot of us, that are in these conversations, like you and I are today, can say the same thing. I love Abraham Hicks.
Yeah.
I love anything that was, around UFO and things like that, other beings that are here, multi dimensions. I was always looking into that on my own, on the side, not talking much about it because the networks that I worked in were not necessarily, it wasn't a conversation I could have freely in those environments, especially when I was working in news. So so once the Akashic Records book, pretty much almost hit me on the head, I realized, and when I read it, I realized I know this already. And so then the third sign was not even sign, but helper was one of my dearest friends, Tammy. On one of my birthdays, I opened up a birthday card and there was enough cash in there. This was back in New York, to begin studying with Linda Howe through Linda Howe Center.
Okay.
So that was it. And then once I began working, the process of learning how to work in the records, really, it depends on, but what's important to that process is that we work on our own past life wounds or wounds from when we were children. It's very important that we do that because we don't want to be working with people and then we have something that hasn't been worked out, And so that's what I did. I was in my records, and that's what Linda Howe does through her center, is we're opening our own records and we're bringing issues to the records. And what I have learned is that, now I'm doing this with people and for people, is that when we bring any kind of issues, questions, confusions, uncertainties, when we bring it to our own records, when we open our own records and bring those to it, our own records give us the wisdom and they show us who we really are. And it's a reminder that we're already light. We already are love, no matter what has happened to us. Once we reconnect with that, we're reconnecting with the powerful divine self, the divine light that we are.
Yes.
Yeah. And one thing I want to add is to your message, to tag with your message, which was really wonderful this morning, is this invitation that you talk about. It is like an invitation for people to just pay attention and to be kind and to love and to not engage in any side, right? That sort of thing, or either side. And what I got this little message that said, what can help during this time is for each of us to remember that we are already love. When we feel our own love inside ourselves, some people call it God, source, universe, the creator. It's the same thing, no matter what religion it's in, what belief system it's in, it's the same something that kind of makes all of this come together. And so when we remember that we are that, it's not up there in the clouds, we are that, when we experience our own love, then our actions will reflect that. We don't even have to think about it.
Right.
And so what reconnecting with ourselves through the records does is it mirrors to us that we are already that. You can feel the love, it's palpable when we're in our records.
And when you're in your heart, you can feel it as well. And another way of looking at it is when you feel that in your human heart, you will remember the love in the Akashic records as well.
which is the records they are who we are. They are us.
So let's explain what the records are for people
Yeah.
who are not who are like, what are these Akashic records? What are they talking about? I'm going to give the floor to you to explain what the Akashic records are.
Okay. So, they've been around since the beginning of time, the beginning of humanity, actually, not just humanity, of the planet. And what they are is it's it's a quantum field. It's funny, it's interesting because Dr. Joe Dispenza refers to a field in his work where the field of possibilities. So it's been called different things throughout the ages. But the Akashic records are basically this space, I like to call it this quantum divine space between heaven and earth kind of thing. And it contains the spiritual imprint of every soul's journey, lifetime after lifetime. So the idea behind this is that we are a soul that reincarnates, reincarnates, and that our souls on each reincarnation before we come in, our souls choose a journey.
Yes.
And it's an overarching journey. It's not I'm coming in to, discover something. It's more like I'm coming in to participate in self-love. The overall message from the records always for all of humanity is that why we all choose to come here at each particular time period is to participate in the expansion of Source itself. Source being love. The all that isness of everything is how they define it. So each one of us has this recorded spiritual imprint, and it's recorded. Every lifetime is recorded, and that means what the soul's done as a human or as an animal, because we can do animals, places, sacred spaces also. And so it's recorded. Our actions, our thoughts, our intentions, everything is in this storehouse, in a sense, this quantum divine storehouse.
I
And
call
when
it a hard drive. I call
kind
it
of, yes. And
our
yes,
spiritual hard drive.
it's a spiritual hard drive. And so when each one of us accesses that, everyone can access their own Akashic records. The reason that we're hearing about it more these days is because a long time ago, the records were only able to be opened by mystics and known holy people. And I've asked the records about this, and what I hear is that, and understand is that because our planet, this is a weird thing to say at a time when we're having this crazy war, but our planet has expanded. Gaia is expanding. The earth is expanding, the planet is expanding, consciousness is expanding. And so there's that old saying, the veil's getting thinner. It's easier to access beyond 3D.
Right.
If you notice, there's many, many more people that are psychics or that are coming into their own psychic abilities. There's so many people now that are mediums and psychics and Akashic people, readers,
And
like myself.
metaphysicians. I mean, just
Yes.
They've got their fingers in that spiritual pie.
Yes.
Coming from a different focus.
Right. And it's because what I understand is it's because we're closer to it, because we really are, we're recognizing that we're higher vibrational beings than a gazillion years ago, maybe. And again, it's a hard thing for me to say right now because of what's going on in the Middle East, because that's not high vibrational at all.
No.
Right. So,
or in Ukraine, or what's going on
in Ukraine, right?
What they're planning to do in Taiwan, all of it.
Yes, and in politics.
Yes,
the division and separation and the anger that's out there, whatever, which is a whole other thing. I mean, this is one of the reasons that my book's not complete yet, and I know it because I need to go back into the records for this time period specifically and bring some of the wisdom from the records into it, and then I'll know, okay, it's done, because most of the book is done. And I've wondered, why is it not done yet? Why is it not done yet? And now I know why. There's a lot going on the planet. So anyway, the records. So that's how that's what the records are. So they're a vibrational imprint. And the way that I work in the records is when I open someone's records, I use a sacred prayer. which was sort of downloaded to Linda Howe through her work, and it's called the Pathway Prayer Process. And when we open our prayer, our records, we're using our legal name, because that's sort of how we're known, right? And so, and you want like your whole name, so that you're not opening up some other Mary somewhere or some other Susie somewhere,
Right.
which probably wouldn't happen anyway, because that person that comes to the records, they want their records open. They have the intention already that they want to access their own records. So that's going to happen no matter what. And so when I open up somebody's records, we dialogue inside that person's record about what their concerns are, affirmations that they need, whatever, they feel stuck, clarity, things like that. And what I get is blocks of thought. For me, I get blocks of thought that are not my own. And quite often it's in the form of questions. And it comes from, there's an entourage of light energies that oversee everyone's records in the way that I work. I'll say it that way. And they're known as masters, teachers, and loved ones. And they protect the sanctity of every person's Akashic record. This is a really sacred space, high vibrational and sacred. Nothing can mar it. Nothing can come in. Nothing. It's light. It's love. It's source. And so when we are in somebody, when I'm doing a reading with someone, we are dialoguing, and the divine moves on the spoken word. And we can see this in sacred tomes. If you pick up a sacred book, whether you agree with chapter 5 or 6, it doesn't matter. But if you've everyone has experienced this, the scrolls, maybe you feel something,
Yes.
an activation, it's quantum. So that's what's happening here. So the records are open. It's live. It's a live, breathing, energetic flow of love and source. And all that happens is expansion, 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 a re-remembering of that person, why they're here. It's an amazing tool. 100% of the time, I've been doing this since 2008. I never come away, I always come away, I should say, expanded, fuller. And the person, I can see them just sort of realign with what their soul's chosen journey is. And that's, the reason people come to the records, their own records. They always come to their own records. It has happened 100% of the time for me. I'm never asking anyone or telling them they need a reading. It's the most amazing thing how it's trippy, how it happens. It's the work of divine, and I know this.
It
And so
is.
if someone comes to their records because they're seeking something, no matter what we're talking about, the records themselves, they're talking to the divine, higher vibrational part of themselves. I'm just the sieve through which it goes.
Yeah, and I understand that. So I have a quick question. When you are giving somebody information, do you ever find that people argue with you about what you're getting? Like they say, yeah, no, no, and sort of like, even though,
It's a great question. Well, no. Well, actually, I'll give myself as an example. Do people question? Yes. What happens very often in readings is the records pose questions through me, and the question is asked of the person, and as they answer their own questions, that's when they get the clarity.
okay,
So they're asking the question. I'm hearing their own divine selves answer, ask them another question, and how they answer it becomes the solution or the path through. Now, I have had a few that were, well, I don't know. Here's what happens. Like, for example, I might get an indication or a sense. I get senses of things too, that somebody's childhood was really rough, right? The records aren't sitting there like therapists, although I call it spirit therapy because that's what it feels like. But the records are not going, we have to go this and heal and do this and dig in. That's not the records. If that were to come in, I'd know I wasn't in the records. So what has happened is there may be a question about somebody's childhood. Talk to me about, I'm getting a sense of when you were 7 or 8, something, I don't know. And then someone will just go, well, and then something will come out. Sometimes that person will go, no, my childhood was fine. I was this, I was that, I was that. So here's what happens in that instance. So the records being so loving, divine being so loving, they just move to the next thing. And literally 100% of the time, that person winds up talking about an event that happened that was traumatic when they were 7 or 8. That's the power of divine. I can't tell you how that happens, but I know that this is this field that our minds cannot figure out, maybe science, maybe and I'm okay not figuring it out because I have an amazing imagination and I'm okay with not knowing.
That's so fascinating. So let's talk about individuals, things that you've witnessed through your readings that they've encountered with light energies. I'd love to hear some stories about some. I don't know if it's something that was going one way but opened up a different way, and it was just beautiful and amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's one that I have, and he's a radio host, and he has shared this experience he had in his own records with his audience. And he was sharing during his reading. He was sharing about a part of himself that he hated, that he's no longer. The guy is a shaman slash radio host out here in California. And so what he said was, "Oh, there was a time in my life, and I hated everyone. I hated homeless people. I would scream at people on the street and curse them out, and this and that and that." So here's what's interesting: he was bringing that into the session. And so my ego, by the way, part of my prayer is my own ego is, I like to say, sitting on the couch in the corner.
right.
I have no, it doesn't, I just, if my ego were there, then I would have a judgment about it or a thought about it, but I don't. So anyway, so he tells me about this period of time. And then the records, I heard this gentle question: describe the feeling of, he named that his character at that time, Mad Dog. He goes, "I was like Mad Dog." So I hear this little gentle question: talk about Mad Dog, talk about the energy of Mad Dog. What was the energy of Mad Dog like? And he goes, "Oh crap." He goes, "Powerful, like I could destroy, power, power, power." And the next suggestion was, imagine that power flowing through shaman you. And he sat back and went, "Oh whoa." And this is something that comes up all the time with with our society has named things and puts things on us when we're growing up. Could be belief systems. Sometimes quite often actually, it's belief systems. And so we have these perceptions of times as negative, traumatic, and the records do not invalidate hurt like war, right? However, every one of those incidents, every one of those things that has happened to us, that we feel has happened to us, becomes an asset and opportunity when we bring those incidents through the lens of our own Akashic records. It's amazing. And I don't know any other process where that happens. I didn't know that was going to happen, but more and more as I worked with people, that began to happen, where things that were traumatic, we would look at the energy of, actually Linda Howe speaks to this a little bit, is that we can look at the energy of something horrible. I mean, a lot of people I have the things that come to me with people's childhoods or past lives. I mean, rapes, just awful things, being shut down, tortured, things like that. And when we look at the energy of it, there's an energy that's separate than the incident, not separate, but it's a different feeling. When we take that energy and bring it into who we are in the present moment, it morphs into something else. It doesn't validate it. It doesn't mean war's good. It doesn't mean rape is good. Never. But it has a different power to it. And then I equate it to, it goes into a toolbox that we have, our toolbox for life.
Which I really love. And I really believe that when we find out about some of these horrific experiences that we have, because not only have we been the victims, we've been persecutors. We run both lives, in different lives. We're one or the other, and it builds up an extraordinary amount of energy in the records. And because I do SRT, I don't know if you know what SRT is, but it's about clearing the Akashic records. It's a different way of dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how once you look at it and you deal with it more in a neutral stance, how you're able to change it.
Yes, the records have imparted, I'll say, that there is no such thing as right and wrong. There's just choice.
Yes.
That's it, choice. We have been told things are right, we've been told things are wrong, and then there have been religions created around that, and there have been systems created, and politics are created around that. And so we have all, and it's interesting because it just seems like everything, medical system too, they're slowly imploding if you look, because they're based on that's right and that's wrong. We're right and you're wrong.
Right.
And in reality, what I'm learning is at the center of everything, there is no right and wrong. There's just love. And it sounds pie in the sky, but that really is what it is. It's love. Love. That's it.
And as I said earlier, love is the common thread between all of us that really is there.
Yep.
Once you take the human body away and the human mind, and we're just essence, our common thread is love. And that's how we
Absolutely.
connect, especially on the other side of the veil.
Yes.
We connect that way. And so I would love if there's somebody who could figure out how to get everybody to connect their love threads in human form. And so we could live in some element of peace because, as I mentioned to you before when we were off camera, off the show, is that so much is going on with the conflict and strife and people affecting other people because they don't agree or believe in what they're doing, and how important it is to just allow. It's almost like surrender, trust, and allow that things are going to come together in the positive, pushing the rest to go. How does that go with where your Akashic training goes?
Yeah, I was thinking a few things when you were just saying that. It is, I think, the mystic Andrew Harvey speaks to this too. Eckhart Tolle. I was hearing Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle talks about the collective ego,
Yes.
and he's been described when I'm in my own records. His name comes up as an ascended, which I can see like that makes sense. Anyway, so what he says about the collective ego conscious is, let me speak to the records. So the records talk about the collective ego conscious, and they refer to him being on the right track about this. So what we have is here's how it begins. When an individual, and they could be a CEO, we'll get to that, the head of something, a leader of a country, but when that individual loses touch with their own, and I'm going to use divinity, that doesn't mean religion, it means light. Okay.
Yes.
When we know we are light, love, as you were saying, when we know it, really know it. There's one thing to think you are. Oh yeah, I know I'm a good person, blah, blah, blah. And then you go and you make a bad decision that hurts others. It's not
Right.
that. It's a different knowing, which is what work in the records helps us do. We feel this aspect of ourselves that is so profound that when we're reminded of that, that we are that, then our actions reflect that. We go out into the world and then we're able to mirror that out, right?
Yes.
So what has happened with the collective ego conscious, what's happened is the loss of connection to our own divinity then gives us inspired actions that are, I like to say, like they're over here. Let's just say this is the center of light of all that we are. And then when we don't know we are that, like the host who was running around yelling at people didn't know he was light. If
Right.
he knew he was light, he probably wouldn't have been screaming at homeless people on the street. So we know we're light, but when we don't know it and we've lost touch with that, now we're over here in some void called the collective ego conscious. And what happens is then actions feed into that. And I have been shown through the records an image of a balloon when it's filled with air. And every time we act out of non-connection with our own divinity, our own light, we're feeding into this balloon over here and it's getting bigger and bigger. But if we pop the balloon, there was nothing in there to begin with, was there?
No.
Because there's no reality to the collective ego conscious. It's it fears its demise, which is what Eckhart Tolle speaks of, and that makes sense. Now, not healthy ego, we're not talking about that, but like this ego conscious. So what I see is I've been shown a gray band around the planet, and it's pulsing. It's the collective ego conscious. And every time, for example, a missile is thrown and sent somewhere, every time that happens, it's feeding immediately into that band of collective ego conscious. That collective ego conscious has no light. It's not of light. It doesn't know. Actually, if that collective ego conscious knew it could be light or was light, it would just dissipate. So this is trippy. When we know we're light, the point is, we act naturally. We don't even have to think about it. We'll do kind things. We'll think to call someone who's hurt. We'll think twice about picking up a gun and running into a school.
Right.
That's what happens. And so what is important right now is just this reminder. And in a little way, I'm doing this when I work with people, is just I'm participating in them experiencing their own light, and I'm beginning to now, I'm going to be starting to do workshops where I can do larger groups of people who are experiencing the light of their own records. I'm actually going to be speaking on Sunday at Unity in Santa Barbara. And so I'm beginning to do that because more and more of us, it would help for more and more of us to just experience our own light. And when we do, it will change those attitudes. It will change those actions. I'm hopeful about that.
I believe that you will be such a great help because it's like the walls around our heart dissipating, melting, and allowing us to be open to another, to an experience that if you had your ego and the walls intact, you would be more conflict and fighting rather than flow and love and
That's right.
just going through that. I
Yes.
just went through something where I just made a decision to surrender a situation. And the minute I took that action, peace came over me.
Yes.
Total peace. And I just like, oh, this is nice. I should have done this a long time ago.
I've had that experience. When you were asking about people disagreeing in their records or saying, no, that's not true. It happened for me. So when I was doing the work through Linda's Institute or organization, whatever, when I was opening my records one day, had them open, my records imparted to me that I was, it was like, Mary, I would write on my computer and I would hear, we show you writing. Now I was my whole career director. I was in production and directing. And so I'm sitting there on my records with my records not arguing, but I went, no, I'm not.
Right.
Which is so funny because I knew what the records were by then, but my own self, because now it was me in my records, I was going, no, I'm not. I'm a director. And the records, this gentle thing came in and it was like, no, we show you writing, Mary. And when you begin, it will be so easy that you will just not even believe it. So after that reading, my own reading, I kind of was like, oh, I don't know. And then I got tired of that thought and I surrendered what you're talking about. I just surrendered. I went, whatever. No joke. As soon as and it's a feeling of surrender because we can think we surrendered and we didn't.
Right.
And I think that's tricky. But I really just let go. And I got a phone call to write a screenplay based on the untold story of Mary Magdalene. And there it was. And here's the other thing that we discover, that a lot of the things we've done in our past, we think that was over there, meaning this lifetime. Right. Oh yeah, I was a plumber over there. I was a writer here. I was this and that. Now I'm here. Now when you're in the records, they all come forward and they blend together. And so when the opportunity to write a screenplay came to me through very close friends, so it was harder for me to go no.
Right.
I remembered my own reading and I went, So then I thought, God, do I know how to do this? And then I remembered that I had been throughout the years taking screenwriting workshops to be a better director, I thought. Like 4 times, East and West Coast. He's a global guru, Robert McKee, of screenwriting. And I would go to those workshops. I'd take weekends and go because I thought I'd be a better writer. And then when it was time to write the screenplay, I was like, oh my God, I do know how to do this. I actually studied it. And so that's what happens when we open our records. It's all there. So there'll be little pieces of our lives that we thought that was then or whatever, and they come forward, they float right in, and it becomes an asset.
So I'm hearing pieces of a puzzle that makes the whole picture
Yes.
in the current experience.
Yes, and we come in where when we are birthed into a lifetime, we come in already whole. It's like a hologram, right? We
Yes.
are whole already. And then, 3D life challenges, that tricky ego conscious and collective ego conscious, and then of course subconscious patterns, that's a whole other thing. That the tricky subconscious patterns.
And
Yeah.
they tend to try to run us from underground,
Yes.
from
And
the
they
invisible.
And yeah, Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about this, that they now, he loves to say, science now shows us that the subconscious runs 96, 97% of our life behavior, rather, from the background. So the conscious doesn't know. When I learned that, I went, oh my gosh, my whole life shifted. I went, oh my God. So when we have repeating patterns and our conscious doesn't understand, why do I always do that? If you can identify it as a subconscious pattern, and when you bring that into the records, they transmute. They don't go away, they transmute. It's powerful.
And it's like taking ownership and responsibility for things instead of saying, no, 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 that isn't me, or that I wouldn't do that. But
That's
you
right.
know what? Well, maybe I did do that in another life, and I'm really sorry. And all of a sudden, that will also allow for that trauma or that effect to dissipate and
To
transmute.
dissipate. And it morphs into something else. It's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool. I have to ask you, being in the industry, the entertainment industry, and this whole strike thing and egos, and we're talking about egos, and would would how do I say this? Would you opening up the Akashic records for these individuals, given like a stronger insight into how to structure a deal for the actors and the SAG members? Does that make sense? What
Well,
I'm
yeah, that could happen. I actually have opened the records of companies as long as they're publicly known. And of course, the unions are. Yes. I mean, I've had, a system invite me to open the records of that system with all the stakeholders or whatever present, so that they can ask questions to the entity, because the idea is that every entity, we'll call it entity, anything that's been formed and is known has its own record,
yes.
right? And so we can open the record of that particular entity, and it will impart what's real about it, what it wants to be, what it was formed for. I mean, there's information that comes through. It's really cool. And so opening, like, the best thing, I'm hoping this will happen, to actually be opening the records of CEOs, if they can, understand that maybe they can understand themselves more. And when they understand themselves more, it will filter right through their company and out to their products and services. But it's like not having, I mean, how do I get those CEOs? I don't know. Divine will do it or not do it. But so you asked also about the actors themselves. So what were you wondering?
Well, it was more about like, having like, would it have been helpful if Fran Drescher had a line to you and you opened the records for her to help her negotiate what
Yes.
took 5 months to negotiate?
Yes, it would have helped. Now, here's how it would have helped. It would have helped only if her soul's journey involved what you just suggested. See? Because sometimes somebody could be working really hard at something and it's just not happening.
Right.
We could go into that person's records and it could be that's not even part of their journey. That's why it's not working. See? So it would help that person no matter what, whether that what they're doing is on target to why they're here. Everything with this work is about realigning with our purpose, why we're here. And when we are out of alignment and we're acting out of alignment, things don't work. It's that simple. They just don't work.
Yeah, it becomes one big challenge after another. I need to
Yes.
take a stop right now. I can't believe it's 40 minutes after the hour. It's charity shout out time. And your charity is World Wildlife Fund. Let's talk about the World Wildlife Fund and what you want people to know and how they can help.
Well, it really, you just got to go to that web. Well, first of all, number one, it is not just, because I was torn between that and the Humane Society. I think I've felt my whole life since I was little that how we have become disrespectful, that's putting it lightly, with our natural environment and with all living things in our environment.
Yes.
It's upset me since I was a child. It's the thing that breaks my heart, really breaks my heart. And so many years ago, I learned about the World Wildlife Fund, and I was actually working at CBS News in New York, and I signed up to go to Hawaii to work with dolphins on dolphins and language. And something happened in New York, some emergency, and I couldn't go. And I had to cancel my whole trip. And so I've been sort of tuned into them. You know, I really love what they're doing. They protect the species, they protect wildlife. And what I love is the habitats that both people and wildlife live on and depend on. And
Yes.
so, you know, that's their focus. And I like the idea of dolphin and language because when we learn more about dolphins communicating and how they communicate, that's going to help everybody. We now know animals heal people.
Yes. They
And
do.
they always did. It's just we're starting to accept that a little bit. I think it's a travesty. Um, well, I'm going to say it in the nicest way I can, but what we do to animals.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that.
Yeah. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It
And
truly is. And when they do it for sport,
that I can't even,
it's
yeah.
unconscionable to me.
No, to me too. I can't even. And the thing is, like, you know, oh well, we need it. What if we're shooting it and we're going to eat it? And it's like, okay, but here's the thing: today, with what we know, we don't have to anymore.
Right.
Because there is that argument that comes up quite often around me, which is, well, you know, we were hunter gatherers and blah blah blah, but we don't. But we now know more about the plant world, and there's so much. There are so many other forms of nutrients. You know, I've been shown in the records that we as a humanity didn't even eat. Like
Oh, interesting.
we lived off of the energy of the sun, the moon,
Hmm.
and the planets. And that, you
Which
know,
there
I
is a
know,
movement about that still, about
isn't
people.
it breatharians or yes, yes,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Where they
So yeah,
don't.
I was shown that. So yeah, so the World Wildlife Fund is you know, I just love that, and they've been around a long time, and I love that too, that they just keep at it.
And it's a hard thing to do because you have so many poachers and so many people who are just, it's about the greed and about taking down the species for their own pocket. But what happens when the species is gone? Then what happens to your livelihood? Then you have to go and disintegrate another species and find
That's right.
something
You
else.
know, I just heard the other day from somebody that there is a new species of elephant that is being born without tusks.
I love that
I
because then
know.
they can't
That's
get
what
wood for their tusks.
Braden talks about adaptation. That's a perfect example because elephants, what my sense of this is that from working in the records, is that the elephant kingdom, most likely, and I'm getting chills as I say this, has a role on this planet and always did. So mankind came in to try and like kind of interfere with that, and their souls figured out another way.
I love that.
Hmm.
And I hope that the other animals that are being close to extinction will do the same thing and assimilate in a different way to take away what they're being killed for.
Yes, yes. So, yay for Elephant World.
The
Um,
elephant soul and how they're able to figure this out. So I think it's fabulous.
we have a lot we could tap in. There's so much for the animal world or sentient beings, so much that they can give us, that they have to give us. But our ego consciouses get in the way because we think we know it all. We put them down on low. You're nothing down there. You're so nothing that I can kill you or stick you in a laboratory
Right.
for research. And who gave, you know, I remember years ago kind of asking this question, like, who made us gods like that? Like, where did we give ourselves that role
That had
to
to be
do
the
so?
snake. It had to be that snake.
You know what? You know what's interesting is there's an analogy I just realized with what's going on in the Middle East. Because some group, entity, individual, always starts with an individual with an idea,
Yes.
comes along and goes, oh, you are not, you're down there. And there you go. And we're doing it on our planet with things that are filled with life. We're destroying the environment and things like that. We're basically saying to a tree, I notice this when communities are built and a beautiful oak tree or something, and it's just like, oh, well, you're in my way, so
Right.
we're taking you out. Well, who gave you that power?
Right. Or permission.
Permission, actually. Permission.
Because,
Better word, yeah.
and nobody gave them the permission. Their ego
No
asked
one.
the permission. Their ego was the one who guided them and said,
That's
you
right.
can take this and
Yes.
you can take that and you can blah, blah, blah.
Yep, yep,
And the
yep, yep, yep.
reality of it is all you're doing is harming what we are. And it goes back to that conversation we were talking about offline, which was about fracking. These people who think fracking from the earth is okay. It's not okay. It's not
Not
okay.
okay.
I mean, we won't be around to see it, at least you and I won't. But what
Right.
about our children's children?
That's right.
And how they're going to be affected and their children. And there is a lineage thing. And I'm hoping that somewhere along the line, some of these things can be stopped so they could regenerate themselves. Speaking of consciousness, because yes, the oil has a consciousness. Stones have consciousness. There's
Yes.
nothing that doesn't have consciousness attached to it.
Well, I believe that enough people, again, come to the realization, each individual times gazillions comes to the realization and the knowing that they are of light. If enough people do this, that is what's going to shift everything. I believe that. I really believe that. Look at Greta Thunberg going to the United Nations and that clip that goes around and she says, "How dare you?" This young girl, this little girl,
Yes.
all these mostly men in the United Nations, men and women, but mostly men, how dare you? That's power, right?
It is power. I would love to know her background, like how she was raised. And is this I mean, it's all downloaded and brought in, but it's also for such a young person to have such insight and such, uh, what's the right word?
Knowing, she just knows.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that her parents had to support her in a beautiful, healthy way,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe they planted the seeds and they just germinated and she is the mouthpiece for it.
Or she could have come in from another lifetime with this, and
Or
that is,
another
and we
planet.
certainly see what her role is. I think it would be great if you interviewed her. Oh my gosh.
Oh, she would be amazing.
I'm going to set that intention. I would love to see you interviewing her, talking with her, chatting with her.
She would be, I mean,
Yes.
she would teach me a thing or two, I'm sure. I
Yeah.
mean, what an
That's
amazing young
important.
human being. Yeah.
Good. Well, we're going to see that happen.
We're gonna make that happen. That would be
We'll make that
great.
happen.
I'd love to have her. And she's got to be what, like 20, 21, 22 now? Still
Probably.
very young.
Yeah. Yeah. Still young. Yeah. She probably is around that age.
Yeah, truly. So I want to go back to your books because not only are you writing one, but it's a part of a trilogy from what I've read. Is this
Mm-hmm.
true?
It's so what I, again, after the thing about writing, when I did start writing, by the way, I don't mean to say like my records were right, but oh boy, it was easy. It was so easy. I questioned it. And that's so exactly what came out of my records is exactly how it went down. I'll say that. So they showed me the first one was, using myself and my own records as examples of things that would resonate for others, similar to conversations with God, the way that he was just asking God questions. But for me, my first book is my asking my own things like, why is this and that? And it would be things that everyone's going to go, oh my gosh, me too. And
Right.
then more, because every time I would be asking about something in my own life or a past trauma or a past life, this other stuff would come out. And I realized, okay, that's got to be in the book because it's about humanity and it's timeless. And so there's that. The second one is to go to sacred sites around the world and open the records of those sites.
Oh, that would be
That's the
amazing.
third one, actually. Yeah. And the second one, very interesting, is to do readings for people who are in prison and about to come out on parole. This is an interesting one.
That's very interesting.
Because they're coming back into, so to speak, the world that they left a certain way. And hopefully, depending, I mean, probably this is coming up because one of my brothers was in it. The one I was very close to him. He's on the other side, and he was in and out of prisons for heroin addiction, and he had a heart of gold, and he was a painter, an artist, and he was just a beautiful, beautiful man. And I watched the system not help him. And so it could be that, and that's connecting up with, now what does that mean? It means that maybe I chose a family that had that brother because of what I'm going to be doing now with a book about this. But to what I'm being shown about people who are in prison in particular, and especially those that are about to come out again and reintegrate, that they don't know that they're light. That's why they made mistakes to begin with.
Yeah.
So if we can just show them their own light through their own records, they're going to come out and they're going to do amazing things. That's my prediction. But that's why I think that's going to be a book.
And they have the capability of doing amazing things. They just haven't been told they can do amazing things.
That's right.
So it's like what Julia Roberts, this statement always comes to me. You know how it's just easier to believe the bad stuff. I'm paraphrasing that scene from her and Richard Gere in bed, and he's telling her how amazing she is, and she's like, you know how it's just easier to believe the bad stuff. That's what these people, not just in prison, but in their own human prison, because
Yes.
you don't have to be behind bars to be in prison.
No. Right.
How it gets
We know that.
affected.
Yes.
So, okay, we only have a few minutes left. I want to give you the opportunity to share to the listening audience anything I haven't asked you about thus far. I have so many questions I have to bring you back. But in this particular segment, what I haven't talked to you about that you would like the listeners to know about?
I had to say, I think we've covered everything. But the one thing that I do want to remind anybody that listens to this, you can be a warrior for good.
Yes.
And that sounds like, oh, no, it's real. When I was growing up, I was quite often criticized by many people for being pie in the sky, thinking everyone was good. And I was criticized for it. You're so stupid. You think everyone's good. No, they're not. Watch out, blah, blah, blah. And I did. And when I finally came to this spiritual awakening, we'll call it that, and this world that I'm now in, I was shown, Mary, you were right. Everybody is good. Now, that doesn't mean the killer is good. I mean, not to say it that way, but inside that killer, yes, there is good.
Yes.
And I'll probably hear, and you may hear something about that, but we have to remind ourselves that we are light, we are good, and we are very powerful. And it's now time to pick up golden swords. I hate to use the word sword. Take that light, and it's just slash that light through things. Just imagine a lightsaber when it goes like this, and it has a trailing light. That's what we can do as powerful warriors of the light.
It's
and
like
I
cutting
believe
the cord of the negative.
What's that?
Cutting the cord of the negative.
Absolutely. Well, the light will do that. It'll
Yeah.
just expunge. I mean, it'll be gone, and we can do it effortlessly. We don't have to resist the thing that is wreaking havoc. We'll put that.
It's true. And I recently had read something about how all souls are beautiful. They're healthy. They're love. It's just people are not their souls. People don't
Yes, that's right.
their souls.
Beautiful, Marla. I love that you said that. Yep.
So, and it's like a great way to pull this all together about, you may do things that you might be, ashamed about, or you'll kick yourself for doing. But remember, you can forgive yourself for that. That's the gift that keeps on giving. You forgiving yourself.
And knowing that all those things happened that they play into the bigger picture of why you're here. Then it becomes a powerful thing. It's not condoning it, because sometimes people can get trapped in thinking they have to forgive themselves when it was just a choice that, when we look in the lens of the records, this is what's new. Those choices become assets and opportunities moving forward. That's very powerful. And that's I would like to call that a new thought.
It is powerful. And so,
yep.
Well, we're going to have to bring you back, Mary, because our time is over. This conversation has been so phenomenal. There's so much energy in it, and there's so much information. But everyone out there, check out Mary on her website, which is spirittherapybymary.com. and check her out, work with her. We don't have to live a challenging life. We're not meant to come on this earth to be challenged like this. We're only meant to learn so that we can let it dissipate and we can move on to the next thing we need to learn and heal from and move. And it's just the trajectory of being a human on this planet. So, Mary, thank you so much. When your book is actually about to come out, which I feel it's going to be in the first quarter of next year, I don't know why. This is what
Love
I'm
that.
feeling.
I got a chill. Woo!
That we're going to bring you back on so we can talk more in depth about your book,
Good.
leading it to the other, because there's so many layers. There's layers to everything, but in the Akashic Records, the knowledge base, I think I'm just seeing like layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of information and knowledge that will be just so helpful, even in conversation, for people to get them interested, to get them a part of, getting a reading, changing their life, getting aligned,
Yeah.
from the inside out.
And if anything from today, to be reminded that you are really light.
And love.
Always were and are.
Yes, light and love, they go together hand in hand. You say light, I
Absolutely.
say love. Together they
It's
blend.
the same thing. Yeah,
It's a
light and
beautiful
love.
thing. I want to thank Bridget for all you do for me. Thank you so much. My tech wizard, my left hand, my right hand, so grateful for you. You, the listening audience, so grateful for you taking the time out of your day, out of your life to be a part of this show, whether you're watching live or you're hearing an uploaded version. It's still affecting you in the same way. And the whole purpose and goal is to bring information, knowledge, and amazing people like Mary Madeiras with us to have these conversations. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to remind you, it's the holiday season. My book, My Fucking Long Journey to Loving Myself, A Guide to a Shorter Path, can be found on my website or on Amazon. It is my story, but with a lot of tips, tools, and techniques that helped me heal and that can help you heal and that I still continue to use in my course today. So remember that. Also, again, I'm going to remind you, please be kind to people. Just that because they have a different belief, because they have a different outlook on life, doesn't make them bad or wrong. It just makes them who they are. And you stay in your own lane, believing what you believe. Be the best person you can be so that more can be given to you. Because as you know, where your thoughts go, energy flows. So try to make them good ones, okay? So as I leave you, as always, I send you love, blessings, and gratitude. Know how grateful I am that you're in my life in whatever capacity you're in it. For not only are you my student, you're my teacher. Not only am I a teacher, I'm a student and a lifelong one at that. So thank you. And I'm going to say these 3 words to you. I love you. I am not the only one who loves you. You've got family, you have friends, you have colleagues, you have the people you can, you hang out with, all love you. But even more importantly, you've got a plethora of beings on the other side of the veil who are your biggest cheerleaders that you may not be aware of. Let them do your bidding for them, but you have to talk to them. You need to ask for what you need, want, and desire, and do it in detail so then they can go out and bring it to you. And then it's your job to be open to how the information comes to you. So be aware of what's going on. That's where mindfulness comes on, so you can put the pieces together and know that they're working on your behalf. Next week is Thanksgiving in the U.S., and I will be doing my annual Thanksgiving gratitude program. I hope you'll tune in. But in the meantime, know you're loved, know you're cared for. Oh, one more thing. If you live in those cold states, please make sure you have blankets and a can with candle and matches and water and food for you. And if you travel with pets for the holiday season, so if you get stranded, you can stay hydrated, nourished, and warm until help can come. Okay, I will see you after the holiday. Know that you're loved. Take care. Be kind. Till then.